here's what I realized today. I realized that I serve as the perfect example of the combination of all of my hair loss theories. I've realized that today. I'm right in the middle of all of it. I prove all of my theories ultimately all at once. So I want to explain what I mean by that, because ultimately, if you're the guy who loses his hair young, or the guy who's still 60 and has lost no hair, which means you're not watching my video, then you're on both ends of the extremes, you're proving. But I'm proving my hair loss theories in a different way by being right in the middle. They all basically point back to me right now. Let me explain what I mean, okay? So one of my hair loss theories is if you have Asian DNA in you, you're less likely to go bald, especially less likely to go bald young, okay? As you all know, my mother is of Mexican descent. My grandmother was Mexican. She was a Mexican American. I took a DNA test through MyHeritage, and it shows I'm 21.6% Central American. So think Inca, Aztec, Mayan, people who lived in Mexico before the Europeans discovered them, because they needed to be discovered, I guess. So before they got discovered, those people who live in there for, thousands of years. So more than a fifth of me, not quite a quarter of me, is that race, that people group, which, wouldn't we all agree, they came from Asia long ago. They crossed over from Asia through the Bering Strait in Alaska, came down, settled through all of America. In the United States, we're thinking about Choctaw and Cherokee and Creek. But the ones who made it down to southern Mexico, where my great-grandparents would have been born and were from, there was actually a higher percentage of that native DNA before the Spanish and European got mixed in. So a decent amount of my DNA is technically ancient Asian descent. So already I've got something going for me, and I can prove this in the fact that all three of my mother's brothers, they're either over 60 and one's, I think, 59, 58. They all have Norwood 1, if that, and I can see no hair loss. In fact, one of them has especially thick, he's basically like got dreadlocks. It's the weirdest thing, and he's like in his 60s. He's got salt and pepper gray locks, dreadlocks. Okay, so I believe, noticing that, seeing that they're basically 60 or above and have all their hair, it makes me think, yeah. And even last night, my wife and I were watching this documentary on Netflix called Destination Beautiful. It's amazing. I love it. They go to Mexico, and my wife turned to me. She said, so do Mexican guys not lose their hair? And I said, well, for the most part, a lot of them don't, because so much of their DNA is that ancient Asian DNA. So that's a big part of it. So I'm not mostly Asian, but I've got almost a quarter of my DNA to be that strand of DNA. That means you're less likely to lose your hair sooner. Okay? That's easy to follow. So I've got that going for me. I've got that going for me. I'm not 100% European, in other words. Okay? And most Americans can't say that unless they're, clearly of a different race. Like if they're, I don't know, Indian, and I mean from the country of India, like an Indian American, or if you're African American, something like that. But most white guys like me are gonna pretty much be European. But yet, more than a fifth of me, my DNA is not European. It's of Asian descent, okay? So I'm already combining two of my theories, because Europeans are more likely to lose their hair, but be hairy. Men of Asian descent are less likely to grow a beard and be hairy, but less likely to lose their hair. In fact, they're more likely to have diffuse thinning, if nothing else. Which brings us to a next point on my hair loss theories, and that is that I have diffuse thinning. Even if you can't notice it, I have it. There's a good shot that shows it. Okay? My hair's a little bit longer right now, so it kind of downplays the diffuse thinning, but ultimately I have that. So maybe in theory, I've got things going for me enough to be at age 36, still have most of my hair, have some diffuse thinning like someone of Asian descent would, still be a very hairy guy, as basically 3/4 of my DNA is European. So I'm already seeing all that. Now, let's go to my theory on your 1-year-old photo. Look at your photo when you're age 1. That's a projection of you at age 35 minus diffuse thinning. Let me be very clear about that. It's not about diffuse thinning. It's about your hairline, how your hairline is going to look. Okay. So with that being said, I've got several videos. You can look in my little search box and type in 1-year-old photo, and you'll see where I compare myself at the time as a 35-year-old. Now I'm almost 37. You'll see me compare a photo of myself. You'll see I have the exact same hairline, the exact same tall forehead. It was a perfect projection of me at age 35. Which brings me to the next point. And that is that if you're age 35 and you're Norwood 3 or worse, you're the guy that's going to be balding the rest of your life. But if you're better than Norwood 3, in theory 2.5 or less, or 2.9 or whatever, then you're the guy who really won't necessarily be going bald the next couple of years. Okay? So in theory, I could be 50 and still have most of my hair. Maybe I'll be suffering from more diffuse thinning. In theory, because I wasn't Norwood 3 by my 35th birthday, I'll be set. See, then again, though, I'm kind of like in between everything. I've got a little bit of diffuse thinning. I'm not Norwood 3, nor am I Norwood 2. I'm Norwood 2.5. I just feel that ultimately, overall, when you look at all of my hair loss theories, I'm not on one extreme or the other. I'm right in the middle. I have a little bit of all of it. I have the advantage of be able to grow an awesome beard if I want to, because I'm a hairy guy, which I didn't get from the ancient Asian DNA I have. Yet I still have most of my hair, which would fall on the ancient Asian side. I didn't quite get to Norwood 3 by age 35. So I'll still have most of my hair most of my life. So that's what I believe. I believe I'm at the perfect crossroads of all of my hair loss theories. Some guys will prove my theories by being the 55-year-old man who can barely even grow a beard, but he has all of his hair. He's on one end. On the other end is the guy who's 25 and having to buzz off all of his hair because he's just pretty much lost it all on top. And he's also a hairy guy. I'm in the middle of the extremes. You know, I really feel that way. I think, and looking back on it, I haven't really talked enough about this, but I think a lot of it is because of my mom's DNA. I think a lot of it has to do with my mom, half of her DNA being Mexican and the other half being what we thought was Italian, but the DNA test shows Sephardic, Jewish, and Middle Eastern. But either way, those things still fall more on like white and European, where you're more likely to go to a beard, but more likely to go bald. But that part of my mom's DNA from the Native American via modern day Mexico, Michoacan, Mexico, I think that ultimately is what slowed down my process. I think without that, let's say this, had my mom simply been Greek and Italian, she would have just been European but dark featured, I think there's a good chance I would have already been noticeably bald at this point. I think more than anything, the fact that she is of Mexican descent ultimately is the reason why I still have this much hair. But what do you think?